Greetings, dreamers. Welcome to what is episode 5 of Beyond Gaia. My name is Melanie Stewart and I am your host, and I thank you so very much for choosing to be here. To those that are newcomers, new followers, new subscribers, I welcome you. Thank you very much. And just know that you are here. What I appreciate so much about you being here is that you're here for yourself. I do truly hope, and it is my intention that through this podcast that you feel it as a transmission itself, that it is an invitation, a bridge for you to explore more of yourself, to explore more of your own imagination and what lies beyond the imagination, to see the unseen worlds, and to remember that you are open contact itself. I often have people ask me about astral projection and why don't I allow these beings to just come and see me? Why do I go into an astral projection state to make contact with these beings? And the answer to that is quite simple. It's because we are, I feel, at a phase within our evolution where we are choosing to be progressive. We are choosing to be very conscious about our own growth. And rather than, as I feel as if I've mentioned this before, hoping for a wake-up call or a sign or a symbol or a dream or an invitation, that if there is a being or a race or an area or something that's in your imagination that you desire to explore further, that you are the bridge and the door itself to be able to experience that. For me, I am somebody, the moment I capture a glimmer of inspiration in relation to any type of being or something that I would like to experience, something new comes into my awareness, my excitement and my passion is to explore that, and a great way to explore that is via astral projection. Now remember, astral projection can be used in a multitude of ways, and today I'll be showing you a slightly different way that I'm using it. However, if we're speaking in relation to extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional beings, it is not up to these beings to do all the work to make contact with you. It is up to each one of us uniquely and individually to choose to open ourselves up to find creative and fun and inspiring ways to stretch ourselves in new directions, to raise our vibrations so that we can experience open contact. There's truly a multitude of ways that we can do so. So it is actually up to us. There have been many extraterrestrial beings through different vocal channels that have expressed that in order for us to experience open contact, we must be prepared to meet them halfway vibrationally, halfway. The astral realms is that halfway. To just share with you very quickly the 5 main planes of existence. There are many levels within levels, so I'm not going into that detail today, but just the 5 main planes of existence. The very first one is the physical plane. The second one is the etheric plane, which if you think about our life force energy and our chi and our aura. The third is the astral. The fourth is what is considered to be the mental plane, or the higher mind, so to speak. And the fifth is pure consciousness. Now, beings that are on this 5th level of existence, they are limited in how they can express themselves when you are just pure consciousness. So they can express themselves by moving into the 4th plane of existence, which is the higher mind, and the higher mind expresses itself via sacred geometry and via mostly sacred geometry and shapes and symbols, but more sacred geometry than symbols. This is the fourth plane, the higher mental plane. However, not everybody is able to recognize and interpret and understand how to read or communicate with sacred geometry and symbols and shapes. So in order for them to express themselves even more fully and to also know themselves more fully as well, they move from the fourth, which for me personally, I spent 10 years drawing and channeling sacred geometry, and I love to read sacred geometry. In fact, I can see sacred geometry within a human. However, us still having a very human experience, like to play and experience with more than that, with having more than just the sacred geometry. It offers more depth, more details to the character, and therefore the same with the beings. They like to express themselves even further, and that in itself is a form of fun and play and creative expression for them and utilizing their imagination. So it goes from being on that fourth level to the third level, which is the astral plane. In the astral plane, and remember each one of these planes have many different levels of existence within them, is where they can start expressing themselves anywhere from a light body to densifying with a lot more detail, right? Detail as to shape and form and hair and color of eyes and what they're wearing and landscapes and a lot more detail. So the astral plane is essentially between those five, given that it's a third. It is the middle playing field, so to speak. And it is where there is a infinite amount of ways that beings can express themselves. And it is where most of these extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional, even Gaia herself, when she's dreaming, and things like elemental beings and fae, this is where these beings can fully express themselves, and it is where the majority of them exist. These exist within the astral. If you're contacting the Arcturians, if you're contacting the Palladians, you are contacting different levels within the astral. When I'm sharing with you astral projection stories, these are conscious. So it is when one consciously chooses to raise their frequency and access the astral plane itself. So I wanted to share with you that more extensive detail so you can understand why it is so fun to be able to explore the astral, why it is needed if we are desiring to live more as a multidimensional being. Common comment or feedback that I hear from clients all the time is that I don't know how to connect further with this being that you channeled with me, or I'd like to be able to do what you do, but I don't know how. Astral projection is a lot simpler than what it sounds, and I will be actually within the next few weeks releasing a course that you can do live with me, or it will be recorded and you can actually access the course online through the website and then do the course at your own pace. The benefit of doing it live is that you have the opportunity to ask questions. Otherwise, you can do it at your own pace and work through it, and I can answer some questions to a certain extent via email. Is that most people aren't aware that innately it is the most natural thing for us to actually have open contact with all of these beings. Why? Because we're already doing it. We're just not conscious of such. So what I share with you is bringing into your conscious awareness how this is possible, and it can be a way of living every day, every week within your life. And ultimately, what any of this is about an opportunity for you to know more of yourself, to look into that reflective mirror, because these beings that you connect with will only ever reflect to you more of you, because that's how this grand projection works. So I hope that gives you a little bit more insight and background. So for those of me that ask why, or I have sometimes clients say, well, occasionally I have a being that'll come and visit me. And I said, well, congratulations, that's really wonderful. And most of us actually do have that experience. But that being that comes to visit you is usually the first stage of contact, whether you see them in a dream or whether you have a vision at the end of your bed, or you see them in your peripheral vision, whatever that may be, whether you see them within your mind's eye. That is a very important part of your growth and our evolution to actually understanding how to become more consciously aware of interacting and living with these beings. Living as there is no separation, because there isn't. However, this is taking things the next step further. If you're truly desiring to interact with these beings, a majority of them that you interact with, they will be your counterparts on some level. If they're not a counterpart, there will be an agreement there in place where they're stepping forward to mentor you, to teach you in some way, that there is lessons there and they've chosen to be the one that actually steps forward to share this information with you. So I hope that gives you a little more understanding. And what I'm going to do now is to come back to what I was originally sharing, that about today's experience. Now, what I'm actually going to be sharing with you today involves me entering a cryptic meditation. And just to share with you briefly, the original source of the cryptic meditation was brought through by a wonderful man by the name of Darryl Anker, who channels Bashar, and Bashar also channeled Willa. And Willa brought through this cryptic meditation. It's something personally I've been doing for years and years and years. I've completed more than 15 cryptic cycles and about 10 of the deeper cycles. And what I mean by a cryptic meditation, and please, if you go to bashar.org, I'm not affiliated with Bashar in any way, but I would like to honour the source of information. He's a wonderful man. If you go to bashar.org, there will be details there if you search up cryptic meditation, where you can actually hear the way it was originally delivered. Over the years, I have very organically made the cryptic meditation. It has become my own. I've sort of put my own spin on it. And like I said, that just happened very naturally. And to give you a quick summary of what the cryptic meditation involves, is you spending 15 minutes a day for 15 days in a row. When you go deeper, you do 30 days in a row outside in nature. So preferably around the same time each day, that you go outside and to a tree that calls you, and that tree preferably needs to be near a natural body of water. And that natural body of water preferably needs to be moving in some way, whether it's a ripple, a creek, a flowing stream. For me, it's the ocean, because I live really close to the ocean. So that tree preferably needs to be near a natural body of water, and that you choose a tree that you can also feel has chosen you, and you sit with your back up against the tree for 15 minutes a day, and that you sync your breath with that of the wind, and also the sound of the wind within the leaves of the trees and against the cheek upon your face. You sync your breath with the sound of the water, and you sync your breath with the heartbeat, and you bring all these 4 elements together as one, And this does very much put you into a deeper state of awareness, of consciously connecting with your environment that you are always connected with, but becoming very aware of the subtleties that are surrounding you, to be able to listen to the tree, not with your ears, but with that of the heart, to have conversations with the trees, to take your awareness down into the earth itself, underneath the mycelial network, and communicate with nature spirits, elemental beings, fae, spirit animals. There's really such a broad range of beings that can present themselves. Think of mythical beings that can present themselves to you through this meditation. So that was a little summary of the meditation, and it was important that I share that with you rather than just refer to it as the cryptic and you not understanding what the process is that I'm sharing with you. So to take you into this specific experience, I had been about halfway through my cryptic meditation cycle of 15 days of going to the same place every day for 15 minutes a day and doing the cryptic. And I have this beautiful spot that I walk to where it is on top of the sand dune, where there is this one tree on top of a sand dune. I go at sunset around the same time each afternoon, and this one little sand dune with this tree is overlooking the ocean, and it is spectacular. At sunset, it is peach and golden and lilac and purple and pink, and the hues are amazing. The watercolor in itself is aqua. The ocean's very calm. The sand on the beach is white. There's wildflowers and long grass around the tree. It's just a beautiful setting, and I can just see and hear the ocean as she's speaking to me and calling me. And I live on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, which is on the east coast in Queensland, within Australia, for those who are wanting to understand where this beach location is. So as I approach my spot, I always greet my space really warmly and with an open heart. I go up to the tree with the hand on the tree, and it's truly a bow of appreciation and respect and gratitude. And I look at my space around me before I sit down, and it just brings a smile to my entire being, that there's this feeling of familiarity and this place where I can just drop in. And I sit down, and I always like to acknowledge and thank the traditional custodians of the land. I greet the elements, the plants, the tree, the nature and animal spirits with joy and a sense of adventure, and I thank them for sharing this space with me. I will also usually bring some little gifts with me, I'll bring some berries of some sort, or if I have some flowers in my yard, or as I'm walking to the beach, I come across some flowers, especially frangipanis or whatever I find, to be honest. I will pick some, and whenever I pick a flower, I leave some strands of my hair off the head, so I put that on there. I take the flowers, and as I sit down and I'm sending my respect and my gratitude, I place the flowers and the berries at the base of the tree. It's just my offering. And I also like to thank, from my heart, Gaia's heart, our mother, for sharing her magnificent world with us. So as I sit, I begin to sync my breath and my heartbeat with the elements, as I had mentioned to you earlier. And when you've been doing this within the cryptic meditation for a while, something very beautiful happens where you become in those moments so connected to the land itself, to Gaia itself, to the trees, where you lose sight of where your body ends and where the earth begins. In those 15 minutes or more, for me it's usually more than that, when you are there, you are beyond time and beyond the physical body, where you feel yourself sort of stretch and blend with the earth, where there is no separation between you and her. And that for me is one of my most favorite things about completing this type of meditation. So I'm sitting there, I'm syncing my breath, I'm allowing it to flow with the elements, my heart to flow down into the earth. And I begin to shift into stillness, becoming very aware of the finest of subtleties. And I begin to notice that I enter a conscious astral projection without any intent to do so. This happens almost instantly whilst I'm still in the cryptic process simultaneously. One thing that I did do here is when I was in the cryptic, I did bring down my crystalline tetrahedron, which I utilize a lot, down around my body, and it just amplifies the frequency. So I was sitting there and I've noticed that I've entered an astral projection state whilst I'm still within the cryptic. And then I see that I'm gliding above my body. And as I look down, I can actually see myself sitting in my energetic crystalline tetrahedron quite peacefully. Then I notice myself different. I feel smaller. And I'm zipping around the top of the tetrahedron and taking a couple of moments to adjust to this different level of awareness. And then I'm excited to find myself as a fey being, or almost part dragonfly. This feeling was beyond words, truly, because I've never experienced this before. It is difficult to put words to it, but I'll do my best for you. I felt like I was pure light itself, flying and leaving a trail of light behind me. Then I realized that I had shapeshifted, and in that moment I thought I'd only done this before with my hybrid child, who had taught me how to astral to shapeshift as a wolf. Who taught me within the astral how to shapeshift as a wolf. That feeling, that thought instantly brought my hybrid child into the frame. I looked down and there he was in front of me on the beach as the wolf. Now this is what can happen in the astral projection. It's not what can, it usually happens all the time the more experience you get. I don't usually share the details. I break it down more simpler just for the understanding of everybody sort of following along. But the moment you think something or feel something, it changes the frame. And therefore you don't usually need to try to get from A to B. You just choose B and thus you are. So I looked down and there he was in front of me, this hybrid child who can shapeshift as a wolf. He's a teenage hybrid child. I have actually spoken about him before. And he's as the wolf standing in front of the tetrahedron. It felt like it was almost a playful observation by him to see if I was able to shapeshift on my own. And in that moment, when I started feeling into it, I chose to become the wolf, remembering what he had taught me. So there I was still very aware of my physical self, yet simultaneously experiencing my astral body that had now become the wolf standing beside him on the beach, sort of nuzzling him. He ran and I followed him down to the water's edge of the ocean, and I felt the ocean water against my feet, my paws. Lapping all of this up and feeling myself moving as the wolf and what it felt like to be standing on all fours. Telepathically, he shared with me that this is the location, and I could feel myself shifting out of the wolf and back to my astral self standing beside him. He indicated to me that we both needed to stand back a little bit, and at this point he'd also shifted back to being his human form, and that we both needed to stand back a little, and as we did, the sand started to move in front of us. I just watched the sand sort of twist and spiral in front of us, and these two crystalline beings rose from the sand in front of us. I was in awe, in absolute awe, looking at these beings who were very luminescent and they had a glow to them. But I also had a knowing that these beings are LeMUrian. I could also feel the LeMUrian energy. I recognized it immediately. I could go on for some time explaining what unfolded. However, the best way for me to summarize this for you, because there was a lot that took place, what happened next is that the energy was very, very golden. I saw this golden glow that was coming from these beings, and a crystal rose from the ground, from the sand. A crystal rose up from the sand, and it also had a golden glow to it. To me, the crystal looked like a clear quartz, but with a golden glow. So perhaps it was citrine, I'm still not exactly sure. And as it rose, this crystal rose up from the ground, and there's these two beings that are standing there. This beautiful spiral began to take shape in the sand with the crystal standing in the middle. So this large spiral, and in the center of the spiral was this crystal. I was invited through the unspoken word, through the telepathic communication, to walk the spiral. So as I did, I stepped forward, and it was very sacred. I could feel that this was an initiation of sorts, even though I didn't know exactly why it was happening. I also didn't need to know why. And as I walked this spiral, I felt every step in my physical self that was still sitting up on top of the sand dune, holding this experience. I felt every step until I reached the center. And the crystal was humming. It was singing a very high frequency. And I knew my next step needed to be into the crystal itself and merge myself with its energy. If only you could feel my heart now as I'm sharing this with you, because it feels warm and golden, like the sunset itself that was taking place, like the glow and the energy that was coming from the crystal. From there, I actually allowed myself to step into the crystal, and that in itself was likened to meeting my golden self, my sun within, the sun that lies within our heart space. Our golden self, there is perhaps another sharing in itself as to what that experience was like, and there's still parts of it that I'm integrating as to the fullness of what actually took place on that day, but it's been very activating for me since this experience. I walked back out of the spiral after stepping into this golden crystal and meeting with more of myself, and embraced these magnificent beings that were Lemurian beings, as well as Wolfie, my hybrid child. And as I looked up to the sand dune, I could still see myself sitting within my crystalline tetrahedron, and noticed that it was nearing dusk and that I needed to return to my physical self. And as I did, I knew I'd be a very different, expanded version of myself. Each day thereafter, I continued to go back to my spot and explore the spiral, the crystal, the Lemurian frequency. Each time I greet the beach now, it's the first feeling that I recognize as the Lemurian frequency. I took a photo on this day that I went to the beach when I sat down, and before I began sinking my breath, I took a couple of photos actually, because the colors were so magnificent, the sunset colors, the water. And it was only a couple of days later when I went back in my phone and I looked through the photos that I actually noticed one of the photos shows within the sand these two smaller sand dunes down in front of me, and the shape of the sand, and you can actually see that it looks like there's a feminine body lying in the sand. It's amazing. And some people I've shown, they've recognized it and they've seen it, and others cannot see it. So it is each to their own as to whether they can actually recognize it. But a very, very special experience. And this is another experience of astral projection in a different way, that we can utilize the astral projection, even though I wasn't intending to on that day. Now, when I'm meditating out in nature, I make a conscious choice as to whether I'd like to go into an astral projection in nature, and you can experience, therefore, Gaia and many different beings that have a very strong conscious connection with Gaia in these sorts of ways. And Lemurian beings, the beings of the Mu, are a beautiful way for us to explore more of Gaia, understand more of their wisdom, their connection with the crystals and Gaia itself, and the ways of the land, the ways of their living via an astral projection state. So I hope I'm making sense here. I know I'm rambling a little bit, but that is just a short summary of what was and continues to be for me an experience that ripples on. From that experience, I create many more, and they just become sort of another link in this beautiful chain that is the continuum. Please let me know if you have any questions about my experience, if you have any of your own astral experiences that you would like to share in the comments. Do you have general questions about astral projection at all? Please let me know. I would love to hear from you. I read your comments and I respond to your comments as much as I can, so thank you very much. I also would like to let you know, for those that have actually been asking, that I have taken down the Patreon for now, simply because it didn't really, some of the basic needs that I was wanting within the membership levels that I was offering, and also payment options, weren't being met on Patreon. That platform in itself, whilst it works great for others, wasn't quite working for me. So instead of going Patreon, I've changed it, and I'm just in the middle of creating a membership upon my website where you can access a lot of information on astral projection and a lot of other topics. So that is coming, but in the meantime, please let me know if you have any questions. I've very much enjoyed reliving this experience and sharing it with you. And I hope that you find a spark of inspiration to explore more of yourself, perhaps via an astral projection or via a meditation outside. And truly, I thank you so very much again for being here and your patience with me as I'm finding my feet with this podcast. I truly, truly thank you for being you, and myself and all my higher guidance team that are with me when I am in this moment creating this podcast send our unconditional love and our deep appreciation to you. Thank you for being you.